You can't do stand-up comedy the way it's done here in other countries. You'll go to jail.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raylan Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Hi, I'm Raylan Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raylan Nelson Band.
Welcome back to another episode of Music is Funny. Hey, we have shows.
Real shows.
Real shows where we're playing live, where you can come see us. May 13th and 14th, Woodstock, Georgia. May 22nd at Celtic Irish Pub in Pascagoula, Mississippi. May 28th at Hernando's Hideaway in Memphis, Tennessee. And June 25th in Louisville, Kentucky at some festival at the Water.
I can't remember.
June 26th at South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Arts of the Berg Festival. And then new shows July 23rd and 24th in Florida, Panama City Beach, and then 98 Distillery on the 24th.
Yep. Well, anyway, this week we got another great comedian. It was one of the quickest trajectories of starting and getting past at the Comedy Cellar and moving on that I think we've had. So quick that he thought he didn't even know it was weird.
Yeah, he's also an actor on a pretty successful TV show.
One of the most successful on TBS, I think. Had his own show there. He's a documentarian.
Yeah, he said he loved documentary.
Yeah, so he taught himself to make a documentary, and then subsequently wrote an entire screenplay and directed it, and it's a movie that's just out.
And it's based loosely on his early stand-up.
Yep, loosely on what it's like to become a stand-up from the early days, and all the stuff they go through there.
And it's pretty good
Yeah.
feature, yeah?
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, so check this out. Nashville's own Steve Byrne.
So speaking of, what kind of music fan were you? How young did you start? Casual? Did you get in deep early?
Did I get in deep into music? No, I was a late bloomer with music,
Yeah?
for sure. I was never into music. And I remember my cousin, when I was like in 6th or 7th grade, he was into New Order, like The Cure, like Britpop, and,
Borderline goth type stuff.
yeah, borderline goth stuff. He was Pet Shop Boys, all that stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And then I was in 8th grade, and my buddy had a Subway poster of The Cure. And I saw Robert Smith with the fucking makeup on. I was like, Boys Don't Cry. And I heard it. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? It's just weird. I never heard anything other than what I hear on the radio. And then I got into high school, and I think the first cassette I ever bought was 5150 by Van Halen.
Oh, yeah.
And I wore the shit out of that. And then once I got to college, Oasis came out. And then I never really listened to music. I was a big Beatles fan because the first song I ever remember hearing was Penny Lane. And I don't know why it's one of my first memories, but I was in the station wagon with my mom where you could slide in the back. It was that plastic, just like there's no safety precautions whatsoever. But I remember I forget, maybe I was 3 or 4 years old, and I heard Penny Lane. I go, what is this? And my dad goes, oh, this is the Beatles. And I said, I like that. And I just heard that song, and for some reason, that was the first song. So I always loved the Beatles, and then Oasis came out, and that was the first time I ever was like, I fucking love this band. Anything they do. And when Wonderwall came out, the video, and you just hear that dun, 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 at the end, that, I didn't even like the song. I liked that part of the song.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got, it was like, it was like something that was stuck in my head until I bought the CD, and then I listened to Morning Glory. I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then a buddy of mine said, if you like that, you got to hear their first album. I go, they had another one? And they go, definitely, maybe. You got to go get, and I got that. I was like, what the fuck is this? And at the time, it was exciting because you would go to a record store, right? And you would find your local record store that had like Japanese imports, and you'd spend like $30 on a CD, which is unheard of at the time. But it's like, I'm getting all these B-sides that I've never heard of. And then you hear the B-sides, like, what the fuck is this shit? Why did they put this on the album? And it was so exciting it was the first time I ever got really excited to listen to a band. And then all of a sudden the interviews come out, And then you get this entertainment factor of, oh, these guys don't give a shit.
Oh, it was like pro wrestling.
It was
remember
pro
when it
wrestling,
took me
yeah.
a second when the first few interviews came out. I'm like, who the fuck do these guys think they are? Talking
Arrogant.
About, we're the new Beatles, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then after about a month in, I was like, oh, hold up. I see what's going on here.
Yeah.
It was like very Sex Pistols, like just stirring the pot. Now,
Stirring the pot, yeah.
they genuinely dislike each other, I think, the brothers.
Oh, yeah, they haven't talked since they broke up.
Yeah.
But I think what I really liked about them was obviously all the positivity in the songs. Like at the time, it was Nirvana, it was grunge, it was Kurt Cobain commits suicide, and then Oasis comes along. We want to live forever.
Right.
We want to be a rock and roll star. We want cigarettes and alcohol. It's like that's the fucking band I've been waiting to listen to. So I got into them, and then you have the entertainment factor as well as the arrogance. And every Q or NME magazine would come out with an interview. I bought them. I have stacks of them because I'd read these things, and I had a friend who shits on me for listening to them.
Yeah.
I go, just read some of these quotes from Noel Gallagher. And it was like Noel Gallagher, they ask him what he thinks of Kanye West. He goes, I don't know who she is.
Yeah,
It's like, that's so fucking funny.
I go down rabbit holes every now and then on YouTube. I'm
Yeah.
just best Liam or best Noel quotes or interviews.
Yeah.
And I'll spend hours just cackling. Those guys are hilarious.
Genuinely funny. One of my favorite quotes is when they did, I think they were part of like a Warped Tour, a Lollapalooza or something like that. And so the guys from Blink-182 had just performed. And the door kicks open, and Liam Gallagher walks in. He goes, "Are you guys that Blink-182?" They go, "Yeah, that's us." He goes, "Since I've been in America, the best I've seen." They go, "Oh, thanks, you like us?" He goes, "I didn't say that." And he walks out. It's like, fuck, that's fucking so goddamn
Rockstar,
funny.
yeah.
It's so rock star.
And
Yeah,
there's few and far between those personalities anymore. It
Sure,
seems like, in the,
yeah.
like pop and rock things. Just those guys that almost get away with everything just because you want to watch them do their thing,
Yeah. Yeah, I genuinely love them. And then they broke up, and I got into the Killers. But I genuinely, I love listening to everything.
Right.
I genuinely, I love standards. I love jazz. I'm starting to get into country now. My friends really love country. My wife loves country. My good friend.
What kind of country? Is she into 90s country?
She's in a 90s country because
Yeah,
it's
that
kind
was
of
some
when
good
that was
stuff.
her sweet spot.
Yeah.
But I have friends like Vince Vaughn and Peter Billingsley that are old school, and they are diehard Willie Nelson fans,
Yeah.
and they've been on the bus with Willie, and they tell
Yeah, I
me
met
the
him.
story. Of,
I met him when I was 18. Vince Vaughn.
Oh, Vince, yeah.
He was on there, and he was one of the famous people that have been on the bus when I've been on, and he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "We're getting off the bus so you can spend some time with your grandpa now."
Oh, that's
And
nice.
that's sweet. I was-
Yeah.
Nobody had ever said that to me.
That's how he
And
is.
that-
So he's
yeah.
very aware.
Aware.
He's a great guy.
He
yeah.
knew. Yeah.
And
It was
he's
cool.
a huge country music fan. I know he's good friends with Dwight Yoakam. We've been at dinner a handful of times with Dwight Yoakam, and then once I hung out with Dwight Yoakam, I was like, wow, what a great human being. Just super nice guy, incredibly intelligent, a great actor. But the dinner conversation was a little bit about everything. To be honest with you, I was like, man, he's so smart, And then I went down a rabbit hole of him. And listened to a bunch of Dwight Yoakam. I got him on my playlist. And then there's a band out of I think they're maybe from Austin, the Mavericks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine's a keyboard player.
Oh God,
Jerry
I
Dad McFadden.
love them. They're so
Fantastic.
good. And they I think they toe the line, right? They're a little bit of kind of
Cuban. Their lead singer's Cuban, I believe.
Yeah, they
or
do some-
half Cuban or something. But they're from Miami, so they've got that,
Oh, they're from Miami?
have that kind of twist to it.
Okay, I genuinely I really like them. I don't know that they're exactly country, but I look, I've been really appreciative of country since I've been here. But I think I'm going to lean more towards yesteryear than present day, where it sounds
Yeah.
a lot more poppy.
Yeah, me too.
I agree with you.
Hank Sr.,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. When did you get to Nashville?
I moved here in December. We moved in Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day, we woke up to a terrorist bombing and no internet because the AT&T went out,
Yeah.
and we just signed up with the AT&T.
Fantastic. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they forgot to hook up our water line, so
Oh God.
we had it was a nightmare.
You had to be questioning the decision, maybe
No, No,
3 days.
no. Still, it was so much better than Los Angeles. So we're very happy.
Another friend of ours moved here from Los Angeles, and 8 days after he moved here, he was robbed at gunpoint in his front yard.
Are you serious?
And he was like, it's same kind of situation where he's like, I don't know if I was supposed to move here.
Oh my God.
Never been robbed ever before in his life. And
What area does he live in?
Madison.
Is that a bad area? Or?
No, it's
No,
not.
like
It's not. In fact,
It
he
used to
lives
be.
like
You know what happens when gentrification happens?
Sure,
It
yeah.
was
Shoving
about a
people out, and
mile.
they're still,
The fringe, yeah.
yeah.
A mile away from the police precinct, too. So
Oh,
strange.
really?
Yeah, strange.
weird.
It was very.
You know what's crazy?
weird.
I left Los Angeles, and you could say whatever about politics and ideology and homelessness, whatever. I went to Austin recently to do a show, and I think there were. Again, this is one of those things where I get off the highway in the Uber, and then where there's like that bridge that goes before the entrance into the city off the highway.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just see this big bridge, and then the city's there. And then underneath the bridge, there were all these tents and flags. And I go to the cab driver, and I'm like, what music festival is here? He goes, music? It's the homeless. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't think there was like that much homeless in Austin.
Yeah.
But I guess it's everywhere now.
Yeah, I think it's worse there than here. I mean, we've definitely got our problems, but
Yeah.
it hasn't gotten to that level here yet. Maybe because it just gets too fucking cold in the wintertime here.
Oh, that's true.
It
Yeah.
gets pretty cold in Austin, too.
Yeah, but not so much. Not this year. Everybody got it.
But are you guys born and bred here in Nashville then?
Yeah, me.
Okay.
I was born in Virginia, but I've lived here since 1977. So
So you've been here for
Yeah.
quite some time. Okay, yeah. And then so what are the big differences you would say you've seen in Nashville the last 5 to 10 years?
Oh, my God.
'Cause
It's drastically different.
That's what I keep hearing.
traffic, number one.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, 6
We had
or it was
a
at
bit
rush
of a
hour.
rush hour traffic,
No,
and
it's
now
like-
it's turned into the Atlanta. If you got a window between 10 and 2 non-pandemic times to get shit done, and then you're just in
Right.
traffic.
You can get anywhere in 20 minutes before.
Parking
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we could park anywhere for free, and now we can't.
Oh, really?
or find
Yeah.
a place to park even now.
But, we'd have free spots,
Yeah.
and now they're not there.
Wow. And that was downtown?
Everywhere.
East Nashville, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to go because it was scary.
Oh, shit,
And now
okay.
it's my favorite part of Nashville. Is
Yeah.
East Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like that in the late 80s and 90s when I was coming up.
Slow Bar was
Yeah.
the.
But there was no
change.
East Nashville really did. I mean, the locals would call it East Nashville, but nobody really crossed the river. There was nothing over there. There was
Right.
1 or 2 bars and cheap places to live, so a bunch of us guys in bands would live over there.
Right.
But certainly no young couples or any of that shit going on.
Right. Well, I think like my biggest misconception coming here was that it's all country music. And then you come here and you realize, oh my God, all the studio musicians live here, all the tour musicians live here. There's so many great. I guess its roots are in country, but it's
Well, it's
gotten so
also
much
an
bigger, right?
industry town.
And
So
Right.
publishing companies
centrally
and studios.
located in
Yeah.
a great spot to tour. Being in Nashville, you can go really far.
Yeah.
Right around where
10
you
hours
are.
away, you can get almost anywhere besides Texas, the entire East Coast, just
It
straight.
sucks driving to Texas, but
Texas
we've done
is
it.
That's a long
That's
way.
brutal.
Yeah.
Going through Texas is brutal. But my favorite thing about moving here, besides the barbecue, besides Hattie B's, besides Nashville chicken, is the term "all y'all." It's a wonderful term, and I heard somebody the other day go, "Fuck all y'all," and I was like, "That's fucking great." I could hear that all day, and it's not even insulting when you hear it. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all y'all.
All y'all.
It's
Fuck
like
all
not
y'all.
even like fuck everybody, fuck you, fuck all y'all. It just makes me laugh and I'm so happy. It's a great expression.
So you're not from Los Angeles, though.
No, I'm from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we've done
Oh,
a
we
bunch.
love Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh's a great city, yeah.
What years were you there?
I was there, basically, I was born in Freehold, New Jersey, home of Bruce Springsteen. That's how everybody knows
Yeah.
Freehold. And then I moved to Pittsburgh, I think 87, 88. So I was there from then until about 94. That's when my folks moved to New York City.
Okay.
And I was going to school in Ohio. And once they finished once I finished Ohio, I went to New York City to kind of hang out with them for a little bit, and then never intending to be a comic, and I ended up being a comic because of the fact that they were in New York City, and I went to New York to experience it.
Familiar with a band called the Clarks?
Oh yeah,
Buddies
yeah.
of mine. We used to play.
Oh
with
really?
Them. Oh yeah, back in the late '80s. A band I was in from here, we'd go swap gigs. They'd come here off their first record, and then
What was that band called?
what was it? Swing. Anyway,
Swing, yeah.
but and
But
then
we
our
were
band,
supposed to play with them, but COVID hit. We were supposed to play their big
With the
show.
Clarks?
Yeah.
See, I'm
Oh.
still buddies with all those guys. So when we started our band, years ago, I was like, hey man, I got friends in Pittsburgh because we used to go there all the love
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, and it's funny
They
because
love rock there. We're
Yeah.
a rock,
Oh, they
we're a rock
love
band, so
rock.
and
we
it
love it.
feels when I that was this first band I was in. That was like the first bigger city we left. It was a long way away to go play, and I remember getting there. First of all, going through the tunnel's badass.
It's
Yeah.
awesome,
It was
yeah.
like the first time, like, whoa, the city's there. But I remember meeting the people, and I was like, they just have different accents, but these seem like they seem like Southerners almost. They say
Yeah.
yins instead of y'all.
Yins, yeah.
But
Fuck all yins.
That's the Pittsburgh way, yeah.
Yeah.
But fuck all y'all sounds a lot better,
Way
though,
better.
right?
A
Yeah.
smoother.
Uh,
But yeah,
alliteration.
the people there are great. I've always got along there. They seem to have, I guess it's down to earth, maybe.
Yeah, very blue collar, very Midwestern values, but country's big there too.
Yeah.
Really, really big. I'd say classic rock and country are massive in Pittsburgh. And it's home of Permane Brothers, which I'm sure you've
Yeah.
had, where
Oh, yeah.
you get the sandwich, coleslaw, French fries on the bread. And back in the day, I heard that's the Strip District where everybody would get their groceries and meats and vegetables and produce. And so the truckers would come in, and sometimes the truckers wouldn't have enough time to sit down and have a whole meal of a sandwich and French fries and coleslaw. So Permane's just said, fuck it, we'll just put it all on the thing, and then you have your whole meal in the sandwich.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how that started. But the Clarks, Born Too Late is a song I listen to over and over again. I fucking love that song. They're a great band. And Rusted Root came out of Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And that was the big band when I was a kid. Like whenever they
Rusted
were playing,
Root?
it was like, oh, yeah, we got to go see Rusted Root again.
Right.
But how many times can you hear Send Me On My Way? And,
Back when
it's like-
graffiti and the Decade were still open.
yeah, that's right. Oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah. Wow.
Did you ever go up the incline?
Went up the incline, and I took my kids on it recently, and they thought it was incredible. And then as an adult, you're like, it's not really that.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it, like 350 feet? It wasn't that big of a deal,
It's
but
so slow.
it's a great view.
So slow that you think going down would be exciting.
Nope,
Nope.
Nope,
nope, not at all. But it's a great city. I love it.
So Pittsburgh to New York. You hinted at how you got started in comedy. Did you
What? Yeah. How did that happen?
want to as a kid, or
Never intended to be a comic. Never was really into it. I watched it with my dad and my brother when we were kids and stuff in high school. But then I moved to New York City. I got there. I unloaded my car, dropped everything off my parents' place, and I said, I'm not coming home till I get a job. I started 86 and Broadway and just kind of ping-ponged my way down to all the restaurants and stuff because I always cooked in college and waited tables. And so I walk in this place on 50th Broadway. The manager happened to be there. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I'll do anything. He said, fill this out, come back tomorrow. And that place is Caroline's Comedy Club, which is still there.
wow.
So I was sweeping floors, answering phone calls. And then maybe like 4 months in, I was seeing all these young comics. They'd have a new talent showcase on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I saw these kids like my age. I'm like, that looks like fucking fun. I think I could do that. And so I worked up enough nerve. And so September 30th, 1997, I still remember the day. It was the first time I got up on stage at Stand Up New York on the Upper West Side. And I went up, and when you do comedy, you have to have bringer shows. So you bring two people, you get 5 minutes. They have a 2-drink minimum, so the club makes some money off it. And I got off stage, I ran outside, and I always say it was like the first time I had sex. It was quick. I cried afterwards, and I couldn't wait to do it again. So that's kind of how it all started. My brother came out. He goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I was just so emotionally spent because it went well. Yeah. And I go, I don't care if I ever make a dime doing this. I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And I haven't made all that much. Yeah.
hadn't been able to chew your leg out of the trap yet, though?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. But that's how I got started. And then the second time I was on stage, I ended up getting a manager. which is kind of unheard of. There was a guy named Roger Paul, who's a great booker at the time, and did all the East Coast kind of B rooms. And I got to work right away, just thrown in the deep end. So I was 22 and making $25 a show, emceeing, in the tri-state area of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey.
Did you catch any shit from any of the other comics that have been doing it longer?
No, because I didn't know anybody. I just moved there. I didn't have any friends.
Maybe you did, and you just had no idea you were catching the shit. Yeah. They were killing me, but I had no idea.
Well, I got to know a few guys, and then New York City at the time had 12 stand-up comedy clubs, and the Comedy Cellar is the toughest one. That's the spot, right?
Right.
And so I'd worked enough rooms over the course of a few months, and I knew enough of the headliners and met some of them that they're like, oh, whenever you're ready to audition at the Cellar, let me know. I said, okay. So I called one or two of them. I got an audition maybe a year into doing stand-up, and the Cellar was the first club I passed at, which is that's unheard of. And I didn't realize the gravity of that until I had done it.
And what do you have to do in that situation?
Well, you have to just do great. You have to do great.
But do you go and you in front of a couple of people and do?
No,
your
they just
thing?
throw you in the middle of the lineup.
Oh, okay.
So the owner, manager, Esty, did that. Yeah.
To that, is it like an audition they set up, or they just watch you and go like?
No, they audition. Yeah.
So you have a time.
You have 5 minutes to.
Here's your shot, and we'll either pass you or.
Exactly. Yeah. Or we'll see you in another 2 years.
Gotcha.
That's usually the process. So I went up and it went well. And as soon as I got out, she goes, okay, here's the number. Call in your avails. I was like, holy shit. Okay, great. Now I can work at a club. And then I saw the lineup. I wasn't even that educated with all the New York comics to know who the great ones are or whatever. And then slowly I told other comics, like, you fucking passed at the Cellar? I was like, yeah. Well, and they were like, you've been doing this a year? You got past? I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Then I realized the responsibility. And I'll never forget the third night I was there. I may say some names you don't know, but these are like heavy hitters at the Cellar, okay? So it's Tuesday. This is at the Comedy Cellar where it's not the Cellar it is now, where it's a tourist attraction.
Right.
So back then, maybe you get 50 people on a Tuesday night in a room that holds 125, and I go up and I do my set, and I'm in the middle of the set, and down walks Patrice O'Neill, Jim Norton, Rich Voss, Greg Giraldo, Keith Robinson, and like one or two other comics.
It's just a line of assassins
Yeah.
descending upon you.
They walk down, they sit in the front row.
Oh.
And now I'm like, oh, fuck.
Oh, man.
I have no confidence in myself. I've been doing this a year to a year and a half. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have enough to skate by. And my confidence, it's like somebody pulled the spine out of me, and I just lost all wherewithal. Now I start bombing. But I had an ace up the sleeve. I had this Bruce Lee kung fu joke where I would be Bruce Lee having sex with his wife, but all the kung fu noises would come out. And it's gotten me out of so many situations. It's like, if I do that, it's like, I'm good. I start doing that, and it's not going well. And as I'm doing my closing bit, they know I'm closing. They all get up one by one, and they walk out of the room. And they completely ruined my closing joke. So now nobody's laughing. I bomb. I walk upstairs, and they're all sitting at the table. And I don't even go over. There's the comics table at the no. I couldn't even go. I walk over to the bar, and all of a sudden I just hear, and I turn around, and they were fucking with me. And it's like, all right, welcome to the club. That was my initiation.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, God. But it was brutal at the time.
I can't imagine
brutal.
seeing them just walking down.
Oh, it's
Those
one of the
guys.
worst. And obviously, as the years have gone on, I came to appreciate all of them. They're just so damn talented, all those guys.
Quick.
Yeah.
And none of you, it's a list of people that we always said, my favorite kinds that just do not give a fuck. That whole class, it seemed like,
They
just
don't give a
fuck.
Yeah.
Still don't.
Especially Patrice.
Wow.
There was a great documentary that Bill Burr produced about Patrice.
Saw
And it's a great doc. And he's just, he was, I think, he was on the precipice of really breaking through and becoming big because he was somebody that in the comedy community, all the comics knew and respected Patrice. And I think it was just a matter of time before America knew him. But I think Burr probably filled that void, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, if Patrice were to live longer, it's become easier to do your own thing.
Sure.
He wouldn't have had to jump through the hoops to get on a TV show or whatever. I can only imagine if you had him and one other guy that's just filming him doing a podcast nowadays.
Oh my
you know
God,
what I mean?
nowadays, yeah. It's so funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine that, and I'm sure to a certain degree, it's got to be the same in the music community, where prior to 5 years ago, you needed the anointment of the network or a streamer. And nowadays, there's a bunch of comedians like Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer and, Andrew Schultz, et cetera, that have just said, well, I'm not going to wait for you to tell me yes. I'm just going to set up a camera, get some lights, get a producer. I'm going to put content out. And these guys are making more than you would if you were filming a fucking television show on a soundstage in Hollywood. And I know because I did it and I was making money and I know what these fuckers are making. I'm like, what the fuck have I been doing, So it's... I think that's the great thing is that people have taken it upon themselves to get their stuff out. And if you catch fire, you're off to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you guys are potentially doing that for yourselves.
Well, we'll give it a shot.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
I mean, I tune into every single one of their live streams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've gotten at least $60 out of me.
Yeah.
In the past
There you go.
8 months,
60 more than we've made so far, so, they're doing all right.
Hey, do you remember the first joke you wrote?
The first joke I wrote, well, this is the problem, okay? I didn't know what I was doing, and I told this guy that worked at Caroline's, who's a manager there. I won't say his name, but he's a gay guy, and it's pertinent to the story. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. But anyways, he's like, well, you want to do stand-up? I'll help you write some jokes. I was like, yeah, 'cause I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to do it. He goes, well, come on over, and we'll write some jokes. So this is a joke I told on stage. I'm like, my parents came to see me, and they must be thinking, does he want to tell us something? I'm doing jokes like that a gay guy would say. I'm like, I took Taekwondo classes in Pittsburgh, but I didn't get like a white belt. I got a pink sachet, and like people were laughing, and I wasn't even thinking like, I'm saying I'm gay in this joke, and my parents are watching this, and my parents never even said, are you coming out right now? Like, it was weird, but they were jokes. They were well-structured jokes, and I knew, okay, well, I'll do these, and we'll see if it works. But then the Bruce Lee joke was the first joke I actually wrote, and for some reason, that joke got me on BET's Comic View. That was my first TV set, and I got a standing ovation in New Orleans off of that. And I remember the guy before me they clumped all the white people together. So you would have, all these urban acts, and then they just said, fuck it, just put the white people in the middle and let them bomb, and then we'll get back to the program. And so this white guy went up before me, and he fucking bombed. And I mean, straight up, ate a plate of dicks. It was one of the worst bombs I've ever seen. And I'm going, oh my fucking God, I'm gonna bomb on my first TV set. Granted, it's BET, but it's still my first TV set. But the thing I had was the confidence of doing all these uptown shows in New York City, because apart from the Cellar, I would always do the urban shows because they were the ones that were welcoming to me and inviting to me. So I did them. So I knew high energy, perspective, have fun. And so I just went out there and did the same thing, and just 2,500 people in this theater just stood up. And that was the first time I ever did it like a TV set in a theater in front of like an audience like that.
Yeah.
And I got the tape, and that tape got me, on VHS, that tape got me started with my college career. And I was doing all these colleges after that. It got me my first TV set, like a late night talk show. It got me so much. So I really, as unorthodox as it was or may seem, black entertainment television helped launch my career.
Well, it's funny because we were talking to Kathleen Madigan about doing black rooms, and she was saying that, if you bomb, it's way worse. But if you do great, it's way better. Then, you kind of take the high and the low when you get out of those rooms. But she's like, if they love you, they fucking love you. But if you bomb, be ready.
Yeah. And I'm sure you guys feel the same, but I think as you get older, when you have a bad set, I always think it's like getting permanent mark on your face. It sticks with you for like 24, 48 hours, but it's going to wash off. It's going to be okay. But every now and then I have a set that sticks with me still where I'm like, I fucked up. After all these years. You knew how to pivot. You knew how to recalibrate that moment. But I didn't. But black rooms are by far the toughest rooms, I would say. But like Kathleen said, the greatest.
The most rewarding.
Yeah, it's like, I'm running for mayor.
Well, speaking of weird crowds to open for, you've opened for a lot of different bands, haven't you?
I've opened for bands. Yeah,
Like
that
all
has
kinds of.
There's a wide spectrum of bands, but when you're a young comic, you will take any gig that's
So this was
gonna help
during
pay your rent.
the young comic days where I'm
Yeah,
taking
yeah,
gigs.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I did this Camel Cigarettes Sin City tour. So I opened for Kings of Leon, Spoon, Reverend Horton Heat, Modest Mouse. Those were great. Those were kind of fun. Spoon shit on the tour. They shit on us and shit on me. But it was like, fuck it. I'm on a tour bus with burlesque dancers and traveling the country, and it was the greatest. And then I opened for Kanye West. We did Last Call with Carson Daly at the time in New York City, and this is just before his album had come out, so people knew about him, and then it was being released. So we did the show together, and then for some reason we ended up at one of those SUNY schools, State University of New York schools, like Albany or something. So I go, and the show's at 8:00. And I, of course, am there at like 7:30, right? And they go, okay, at 8:00, just go up on stage. So I go up, it's like 2,500 kids. And again, not my demographic. Right. Let's say a bunch of young Democrats instead of black people. So it's a bunch of black kids. And I go up, but I'd done Comic View, and I some of this lent credence to it. So I go up, I do my set. I do 20 minutes. I come off stage. It's 8:20. The student representative goes, "Oh, Kanye's not here yet. Do you mind going back out and doing another 10 minutes?" And I was like, "Okay." And I gave my A material. That's it.
Emptied the barrel.
It's right. So I go back out. I do another 10 minutes, and I'm just getting by on this one. Right. I come off stage. It's now like 8:40, and the girl goes, "Hey, Kanye's not here. Would you mind going out and doing another 10 minutes?" Now, when you're young, I'll do what I can to help the show. Right. If it was me now, I'd be like, fuck you, give me my check. Right. But like a dipshit, I go back out for a third time, and now I'm doing crowd work.
I was about to say crowd work time.
Oh, yeah. Give it up for the single ladies. Give it up for the troops. I'm sober 8 years. Like all this shit you could say, So I'm doing all this dumb shit. I get through. Again, I barely survive. And they know when they saw me. It's like, we're not here to see you, dipshit. So I come off stage. The girl goes, look, it's like 9:00 and he's still not here. I go, I am done. I am done, lady. I'm getting out of here. I'm sorry. So I left. I talked to my agent the next day. What I heard is that Kanye West showed up. Now, the show was supposed to start at 8. It did. He wasn't there, so it didn't continue. He showed up at 10:15. He did 3 songs, and he made like 10 times the amount of money that I made. And that's when I was like, the music industry is probably what I would have wanted to be in. But,
Right.
but here I am slinging jokes. Mariah Carey, I'll never forget. I did that. We did Red Rocks Amphitheater, 15,000 people. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the venue.
yeah.
It's beautiful. And this is, again, a thing where I was making $200 a show to open for her. And the travel was usually $300 or $400. So I was losing money doing these gigs, but I was like, I want the experience of performing in front of 15,000 people to know how that is. And what I learned is that it's like performing in slow motion as a comedian. You got to slow down the rapidity of your jokes so that it can bellow out to that last row and then swing back. It was kind of like watching a wave, And so I had to slow it down. And I remember at Red Rocks in particular, the lights go down. The place goes crazy. They go, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mariah Carey's Charm Bracelet Tour." The place is going nuts. They go, "And now, Steve Byrne." It's just like,
No
fuck.
setup, nothing. Just
And you hear like the scant, like that. And you could hear just like individuals clapping. They didn't even say I'm a comedian. They didn't say anything. They just go, "Steve Byrne." And I walk out and I'm like, I'm a comedian.
it would have been way better if they had just started with, "Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Byrne," and let you walk out to that. Just to get everybody
anything but
riled
that.
up.
And so I remember I was doing the show and I'm out there and I'm maybe 8 minutes in. I'm doing 15 minutes. And this isn't a club. So if somebody says something, you can't just like, "Hey, what'd you say?" And then engage them. This is 15,000 people. And I just hear this one guy like way off in the fucking distance. And I just hear, "Where's Mariah?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck. Can I switch my flight to go home tonight?" It was like one of those, oh, God. But I'm sure you guys have bomb stories, correct?
Oh, yeah, we talk about gigs like that where you're up there playing and sometimes everything's coming out properly. You're seeing the words are coming, but in my mind, I'm going, I have made a conscious decision to be right here, right now, doing this. What the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
There's been many times like that in many different scenarios and bands, but
I want to ask you this because you after being in entertainment and being exposed to, going to shows and then being friends with people that are in shows, as a comic, I'm immensely jealous of what you guys do. I think it's unbelievable I think it's the greatest art form in the world is songwriting, because you could go to a museum, you could buy a piece of art for $5, $10, $25 million, and you can hang it up in your living room, and you just look at it, and that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
But a song costs $1 on iTunes, and you can listen to that, and it'll define your youth. It'll define a love interest. It'll get you through a shitty situation. It's art for all occasions. I'm incredibly jealous of what you guys do, so I just want to say that real quick. But I want to ask you this, because when I'm a comic, I try to stay present and not get distracted. There are times where I find myself on autopilot, where I'm literally present, I'm telling the joke, I'm acting the joke out, I'm thinking about what I want to eat.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest thing, like, I'm not there. And so I wonder, when you're just doing chords, do you find yourself like that as well? That's
I'll be going
crazy
through
that you
my
could have
to-do
the
list.
dexterity to do that.
Going through the to-do list of the week in my head, and I'm just singing and playing. And
Wow.
or if it's been a long van ride and your last stop of the tour or whatever, and you're like up there going, I am exhausted, but I'm starving. I hope the kitchen doesn't shut down before we get done playing, because I'm starving.
Yeah.
But also, it's almost the same as the great gigs, where you're there, but you're not thinking about it, and then all of a sudden it's done. Like, wow, that was amazing. I don't really have it's kind of a vague process that just went by in an hour and a half, and like, wow, that was killer. But it's almost the same kind of out-of-body autopilot thing.
And I just want to say, we're jealous of you because you don't have to pack up anything.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But I don't have the camaraderie. I have a profession of solitude. I'm always by myself. So I am very jealous of the fact that you get to.
That's why I want a band,
band.
too, because it's fun to have a band and
Yeah.
to be on your own. And
It's not fun. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in town that there's a, the star and then a band of musicians behind them. I've always preferred, I would never want to be a solo artist because of what you're saying. If you're going out and playing, it's fun to be in a band. It's like a little gang going out. Mm-hmm. And if we're bombing, we got a gang to bomb with. We'll turn up or whatever. If you guys are bombing, you're kind of stuck.
You're by yourself. If you get in a bar fight, you're by yourself. There's a lot of sticky situations. I mean, the one, if you see a group of girls, you got to crack the 4 girls to get to the one you got to be the safe cracker. When you got a band, it's like you got backup. It's great, but there's plus and minuses to it all. But I for sure would give everything I have to be with, have that camaraderie.
Yeah,
with a bunch of people.
I know you've done a lot of comedy tours with other people. Is that close? Like the.
Not as much as a band, I think, because a band, at least you're crafting a song together, you release the album. But when you're touring with comics, it's like, all right, well, we never worked on anything together. It's just like, I'm up first, you're second, you're third, and then we're out.
It's friends to kill time with in between your set, basically.
Exactly, yeah. And I think even when I had a TV show, I went out with those guys, some of them didn't want to drink, and I love drinking. And so, I remember I was in Montreal at the Just for Laughs Festival, which is a really prestigious, it's like the big comedy festival, for those that don't know if you're listening. So I go to Montreal, and the festival itself is 1 week, but when everybody gets there. But the festival actually goes on for a whole month. So if you're part of like 2 or 3 tentpole shows, you're there for 3 weeks. And I remember I did the 3-week engagement in Montreal. I was doing this ethnic show, and I'm there for 3 weeks, and then I realized the third night I'm the only one that drinks. So I'm like, fuck, I'm here for 3 weeks and none of these fuckers drink. And so I would go out to Old Town Montreal by myself, and I would just bar hop by myself, and I would meet all the locals, and I'd be sitting there by myself, and sometimes you strike it up or they strike it up, and then all of a sudden you're kind of getting to know people. And every night I'm inviting people to the shows, and that was a great thing about being a stand-up, is that you can say, I'm not here selling tissues. It's like, oh, I do a comedy show. I'm here for the festival. Everybody knew the festival. So it was really cool to get to know people. And so it kind of became this fun adventure every night for 3 weeks. I'd just go up by myself, and I'd invite people to the show. They'd come there. I'd meet them at the bar, get them a drink, and then I'd go out with them, and I'd meet a new group of people. And so for 3 weeks, it was great. And then when all the big comics came that last week, I was already like, I'm fucking done because I can't do this anymore, man. I got to get the fuck out of here.
Right. A nice little calling card for that big festival that's as well known as that, going around the neighborhood and going, yeah, I'm going to be down here. And
yeah.
nobody thinks you're a rapist or anything, you know.
No. And these days that seems to
well, you know,
bubble up in the comedy community every now and then. So
every now and then.
It's weird what's going on.
Yeah, it's weird. We've talked about with other comics how it's just strange to hear comics attacking other comics for comedy.
Yeah.
I get people, you know, maybe they don't agree with what they say, but it seems weird that they don't understand that it's a joke and it's still coming from the same place. And, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean it can't exist. I cannot imagine Paul McCartney telling Insane Clown Posse, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, I think music, I've never seen that with music, so I don't know why comics are doing that with each other, because comics, I think, are a little more, especially, you know, out of Hollywood and New York, they're all very, very liberal.
Right.
And they lean hard left. And so when you're hearing something you don't agree with, they really come down on comics that have a different perspective. I'm somebody who's, I consider myself pretty even-keeled right down the middle. And as I've gotten older, I've registered on both sides. I tell people blatantly, but now I'm like at a point where I'm like, there's so much hypocrisy on both sides that I try to shit on both equally.
Yeah.
But these comics are really drinking the Kool-Aid in L.A. And somebody like Judd Apatow, for example, will come out in a major publication and tell comics, you know, words matter, be mindful. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, if anything, if you don't hear something you like, you should be defending that even harder, to give people the right and freedom of expression to say these things. That's what makes our country great. And you can't do stand-up comedy the way it's done here in other countries. You'll go to jail. I've had friends like deported and banned from countries because of material they've said. And that's the liberties we have in this country that I think somebody like him who does a movie called This Is 40, it's like, for who? For a fucking indoor cat in Beverly Hills? Yeah, who can relate to that shit? So I think he's got a different perspective on life. I come from Pittsburgh where, you know, the whiskey tastes a little better at the after party when you got dirt underneath your fingernails, you know?
Right. And
Yeah.
it does seem like these are the same people that are, you know, fans of comics way back. Richard Pryor, for example.
Yep.
They would never tell him to shut up about things, you know, and I'm sure at the time society was like, you can't say that. You can't say that. Lenny
Sure.
Bruce, for Christ's sake.
Dice, remember, he was
Dice.
banned. They almost banned him from SNL, and some cast members didn't want to do the show that week. And it's like, look, I wasn't a huge Dice fan, but, you know, at the end of the day, you should still respect the fact that, you know what? He went out, he did something, there's a market for it. People are paying to buy his CDs or tapes or tickets to go see him. So the free market has decided he's successful. It's not you, it's not Hollywood, it's the people.
And it's not hurting anyone.
Not hurting anybody.
It's not illegal, so
Yeah.
let it go. And it seems like the same people now that are complaining about that stuff would be the same people back in the day going, you got to let it go. Everybody gets to say things. I don't know. It seems people my age have just kind of flipped and just picked a different side and got really stringent with it.
Yeah, I'm to the point where I'm going to teach my kids three things. I'm going to teach them to say please, to say thank you, and to say I'm offended. I think that's the new that's the new frontier of how things are going these days. It's
There you
crazy.
go. Well, beyond that, you from comedy, how did you get into TV? And then I want to get into movies because I've just watched a couple of documentaries you've been involved in.
TV, I got into Sullivan and Son because Vince Vaughn and I used to hike up the Hollywood Hills
How'd you meet him?
in the morning.
Where'd you get hooked up with those
Craigslist
guys?
around 3 in the
Yeah?
morning. No, we met. So he was doing a show called Wild West Comedy Show, and they were touring the country.
I remember that.
And they did a documentary, and they went to like Bakersfield and met Buck Owen, and he gave him a guitar, and that was, you know, again, he's a big fan.
there you go.
So they did this film, And I just moved to LA, and one of the guys got sick or something, and they're doing a show in Vegas. And Vince said to one of the comics, "Hey, who can we get to replace him?" They go, "This kid Byrne just moved here from New York. He seems pretty cool." So they brought me in, and it's the first show at the Lion King Theater at Mandalay Bay, so it's like 2,500 people. Now, I had been doing this show in Vegas called Beecher's Madhouse, so I was very familiar with knowing how to play to 2,500 people in Vegas. So I kind of had an education in this. So Vince comes out, they go, "Ladies and gentlemen, Vince Vaughn." He comes out, he's like, thank you guys. We're going to have a great show. We got some comedy, we got some sketches. Let's bring up your first comic. I mean, literally that quick. That quick. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes. So he introduces me, I go up, and it was one of those nights where it just, everything's hitting, right? And I got a standing ovation. And so Jennifer Aniston was there in the front row and some other celebrities and stuff. I was like, oh my God, thank God that went well. I come backstage and Vincent Peter Billingsley is producing partner. They're like, who the fuck is this kid? And then next thing I know, I'm in Costa Rica like 2 weeks later on vacation with him and our mutual friend, who's another comic, and ever since then we've been like best friends. So he's just a great guy, and people often are like, "What's he like?" I'm like, imagine your favorite scene from a comic. That's what he's like. He's just really encouraging, extremely charming, very funny, but always encouraging. And so we used to hike up the Hollywood Hills, and he goes, "You're Korean and Irish. This is before diversity in Hollywood." He goes, "Unless they make a Riverdance Taekwondo movie, you're probably shit out of luck. So you might want to write something for yourself." And I was like, "Well, I've never wrote anything." He goes, "You can do it." I go, "Well, I don't know." He goes, "You can do it." And that was the whole conversation. And I was just thinking, wow, if he thinks I can do it, maybe I can do it. So I bought some books on television writing, and I wrote a script called For Here to Go. And originally it was taking place in a diner with my parents, Korean and Irish. And then I turned it in like 3 or 4 months later, and Vince goes, "You wrote this?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You know how many times I've had conversations encouraging friends and they never come through, and you actually wrote this?" He goes, "I'll read this." And then like maybe a month later, he goes, "There's some good bones here. I think we could do something with this." So we went out. I met a showrunner named Rob Long who worked on Cheers for many years. And Rob said, "You should make this in a bar." I said, "If you want to make this in a bar, let's make it a bar." And he goes, "Okay, the guy from Cheers is telling you make this a bar show." I go, "Great." So we did it. We sold it. We're on the air for 3 years. We were the highest rated show on TBS at the time. A new president came in. That's how we got canceled. But our ratings were such that we would have gotten renewed because the old president told us that before he left for the new president, which was heartbreaking. But at the same time, we got 3 seasons out of it. So that's why you move to Hollywood, right? You move there, you come with a suitcase and, nothing else. And you're like, man, one day I'll get to go on a soundstage. And then I did. And we're on a plaque at Stage 5 on the Warner Brothers lot where it says everything that's listed, like Ocean's 11, Yankee Doodle Dandy with Jimmy Cagney, and then Sullivan and Son is on there, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So one day I'll have to sneak on the set and show my kids that and go, "See, your dad did something kind of cool." Yeah.
Did you do a lot of comedy when you were in LA? Stand up, or was it mostly
tons? Yeah, always at the Comedy Store, the Improv. One funny thing about working on Sullivan and Son was that we were a summer show, right? So we weren't a traditional like CBS or NBC 22 episodes. We were there for 13 episodes over the summer, and so when we would get there, that's when all the other shows had 2 or 3 episodes left to film. So at the time, it was like 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory, Mike and Molly, Ellen, like a few other sitcoms. And so you'd see these sound stages, and the cast gets to park next to the soundstage. So you'd see like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Range Rovers. And if you came to Sullivan and Son, it looked like teachers' faculty parking. It was like a dirty Prius. A bike was chained up. I remember Roy Wood Jr., who's on the Daly Show now. He rode a Huffy there, and he chained his Huffy up, and he took the front wheel in. I go, "Dude, who the fuck is going to steal your goddamn Huffy on a Hollywood lot? Are you out of your mind?" He goes, "Oh, it's the Alabama in me, man. I'm sorry about that."
That's hilarious.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
But the good thing, the best thing about our show was that it took place in a bar. So after the show was done, we had a live taping. The audience would leave. We'd all change, and we'd come back to the bar, and we'd turn the bar into a real bar. So we hooked up kegs, and the sinks never worked or anything. We had to go to like the bathrooms and wash out the shot glasses and
Right.
stuff. And the jukebox actually worked, and it was all filled with old country songs. So it was cool. We just plug it in, hit play, and then we just listen to all these old country songs, and it was so
That's
fun.
3 years of bliss right there, man.
We got hammered and partied, and we taped on Wednesdays. Every Thursday we'd come in, and security would leave us letters. Please stop drinking alcohol and smoking on the premises. And it's like, fuck it. We would just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
That sounds like Stanhope talking about when they were living on set at the Man Show, he and one of the writers, and they would get the prop people to bring them
Whiskey or tequila. or
mixers for margaritas and stuff like,
Oh,
no, it's
wow.
a prop. And then they finally got wise enough to throw them out.
So
But
funny.
anyway. But, okay, so a lot of comedy TV. I just recently saw the documentary on The Amazing Jonathan.
Oh,
which
yeah.
was fantastic.
Thank you, yeah.
How did that come about?
So
When did you get into stuff, like, clearly the next movie we'll talk about, but
Yeah.
a documentary first. Were you buddies? Like, what brought the idea?
Never intending. I'm just a huge fan of documentaries.
Oh, me
huge,
too.
Huge fan of documentaries. I love them. If I could watch anything, I would just watch docs.
Me too.
So I watched these docs, and then the second time I ever was on the road opening for somebody, it was Jonathan. The first time was Brian Regan. It was back-to-back in North Carolina. And it was at Good Nights. And so I do the show, and Joel, his assistant, his manager, loved Oasis, and I did too. So we're trading each other imports and bootlegs and all this stuff. And that's how I got to know those guys. So every time I came out to L.A., like when I did Comic View, I stayed in Marina Del Rey at Jonathan's place. And when he was in Vegas, I'd come out and visit these guys, and Joel and I would go out after the shows. And so I really got to know these guys, and I knew all their stories, their crazy dynamic. And the dynamic is this: Jonathan is a Las Vegas headliner. He's a comic magician, and he's a drug addict. And the worst place he could be is Las Vegas in terms of, being so close to all of his, indulging in his vices. And Joel is an 18-year-old kid who leaves another continent to come work and care for a drug addict in Las Vegas. So you got this kid who is a teetotaler. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He meditates. He's Clark Kent.
From Australia, right?
Literally Clark Kent. So Jonathan gets a terminal diagnosis due to cardiomyopathy, which is a degradation of your heart, combined with drug addiction and diabetes. He's going to die. He's got a year left to live. So he calls it a day, is waiting to die, outlives expectations by another 3 years, and he says, fuck it, I'm not waiting to die anymore. I'm going to go back on stage. So Joel Osborne, who took care of him, eventually moved back to Australia and became a comedian in his own right. So when Jonathan said, I'm going to go back to stage, Joel came back to open for him. So it kind of all came full circle. And I was thinking about this, like, oh my God, the story is right there. It's a great story. Somebody should do this doc. And I called Jonathan. I said, somebody should do a doc. Maybe I'll do it. He goes, yeah, you can do it. I go, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do a doc about your return to stage, but it's about you and Joel. He goes, great. Because I had known enough about story structure from working on the show. And
watching a shitload of documentaries, too.
Watching
probably.
a shitload of documentaries, yeah, and understanding 10 poles of foundation of storytelling. So I was like, I know how to storyboard this. And then it came down to me, my college buddy, Jason Dallas, who's got cameras, and he edits. He's just a one-man army. So I said, would you want to do this? He goes, fuck yeah. So we book our tickets to Boston. We make this film. We edit the film My Garage, and now developing a TV show out of it. So we'll see what happens, yeah.
So it was just you two guys?
Just us.
Man, it was fantastic.
Thank you, yeah, it was
So
fun.
Did you work your way backwards? Did you we're going to film this concert, or the final concert or whatever, and then go, wow, maybe we should make a documentary and work that way? Or did you start building the story?
Yeah,
first,
I knew the story before.
Okay.
I wanted to introduce Jonathan's legacy, and then Jonathan's the face of the film, but Joel is the heart of the film. He's the heart and soul of the
Yeah,
film,
it's a
that
crazy
relationship.
story. I won't ruin it for people.
Just-
Everybody should watch it.
So you can watch it. It's on YouTube. It's completely for free. It's called Always Amazing. You guys know YouTube is a dumpster fire in the comment section, and I was hesitant to leave the comment section up and running, but we left it up and running, and it's like 98% positive, which I was shocked by, especially a first film. But it's also a testament to Jonathan's fans and how much they miss him and appreciate him, and he still reads the comments. So it's out there, and I knew exactly the story I wanted to tell. So when we did the interviews were literally 4 or 5 hours with Jonathan, 4 or 5 hours with Joel, and I knew the stories. So I'd ask Jonathan about the story, I'd ask Joel about the story, and then you just mesh them in the edit, and they were complimenting one another because the stories were so rich and dense and fun, even the bad ones. So it all came together. I knew how to put it together, and we did. And I was really proud of it. Yeah, I mean, for somebody that just never done anything, and my wife's not happy that I dropped like $75,000 on the goddamn thing.
sure.
I've never got a return on it, but it was. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have gotten to make the opening act, and if I didn't do the opening act, I wouldn't be able to get to do this next thing. So,
Well, which brings us to the opening act. How did that come around? I don't know if you've have read about this movie or
Not
it
yet.
just came out, right?
Just came out. So when my show got canceled, I was doing the Amazing Jonathan film as kind of like a hobby, like a passion project. Like, I'm not going to make money, but I'm going to put all my bandwidth into it because I really believe in it. While I was doing it, I wasn't getting auditions. I wasn't doing anything. It just nothing was happening. And I just thought to myself, well, once again, no one's going to knock on your door and give you anything. So fucking stop whining, pull your boots up and get to work. So I was like, all right, well, what's the one thing I would want to see? I never saw a great film about stand-up comedy. I just never saw a great film that represented the authenticity of the journey of a stand-up comedian. I said, all right, well, you're right about what you know. That's what I'm going to do. So I wrote this film about a kid's very first time ever on the road. And I took all the crazy shit that's happened to me over the 23 years and jammed it in this film. And so I wrote it. I gave it once again to Vince Vaughn as a friend. I said, hey, can you tell me if this is dog shit or if there's something here? And I didn't hear anything for like 3 months. And then he called me up one day. He goes, we're going to make this film. I go, really? He goes, this is great. There's some good bones here. We got to work on the script. So what I would do is I would meet with him and Peter on a Monday. They would give me notes. I'd go on the road Wednesday. And then that weekend, I would just go to my hotel and work on that scene. I come back home Monday. They tell me the same thing. So we did that for like 4 or 5 months. Finally, the script's in shape. Turn it in. I get a call 2 months later. We got financing. We're making this film. I go, okay. He goes, you want to be in it? I go, well, I'm too old to be the MC and feature, and I'm too young to be like a road-weary veteran headliner. So I go, I'm just glad it's being done. He goes, well, it's your story. Why don't you direct it? That's what directors do. They convey the story. I go, okay, I'll do it. And it was like,
First-time director, yes, I assume.
Yeah. And I wish somebody would have said, just think about this before you do it, you know? It's an immense responsibility. So I took master classes. I read so many books on directing. I read Filmmaking for Dummies. Like, I read everything I could get my hands on. I saw the Ron Howard masterclass, the Scorsese masterclass. Nothing prepares you for being there for 17 hours a day. And I'll never forget the very first day we're doing a scene. It was a scene where Jimmy O. Yang, who plays the MC, and he's from Silicon Valley and Space Force. Yeah. Alex Moffat from SNL plays the feature act. So they're at a diner after a radio scene where they both go to do morning radio for the first time, or Jimmy does, and it does not go well. And so the diner scene takes place where they're kind of, sussing each other out and hanging out. And Jimmy's at the bar, Alex is at the bar, I'm sitting in my director's chair, I got my headset in, my assistant director who's there to get the set ready, and then, director, are you ready to proceed? He's there, Peter Billingsley from A Christmas Story, Ralphie, he's Vince's producing partner and producer on this film, and great friend, and moving here to Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
So
we're getting them all.
They look at me and they go, you ready? I go, yeah, I'm ready. This is great. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like taking it all in. I'm like, this is fucking amazing, man. I wrote this and now it's happening. They go, you ready? I go, yeah, I'm ready. And then the assistant director leans in. He goes, Steve, you got to say action. I was like, oh my God. An 8-year-old knows to say action, right? So I go, Jesus
all of those
Christ.
books, all those volumes,
exactly,
hours of reading.
the one thing a kid knows to say. I go, action. So they get into it. They're doing the scene, okay? As written, it's the first take. And now they're improvising. And Alex is on SNL, Jimmy's on Space. It's like, this is great. So now they're improvising the scene. And Pete looks at me, he goes, what do you think? I go, yeah, this is great. And Artie goes, what do you think, Steve? I go, yeah, just let them go, right? He goes, yeah. And he goes, they're going to keep going until you tell them, cut. And I go, Jesus Christ. Cut! My first day, I didn't know to say action or cut.
cut.
I'm a I'm an absolute dipshit. I couldn't believe it. And then you could tell like the crew was laughing. I was laughing. I made a joke out of it. And it was the first day. And I said, look, this is my first take ever on a film. I said, guys, look, I'm a first-time director. A lot of you are veterans. I want to tell you, I'm not going to pretend I know everything about directing. I'm not going to pretend I know everything about lenses or lighting or story, but I will tell you I know everything about this story, and I'm the right guy for this job. So just please be patient with me, and I know to say cut or action next time. And they kind of like had an impromptu clap, and I think that kind of set the precedent for the rest of the filming, because it's like a triathlete in terms of show business. When you're after doing like writing on a sitcom and being the star of it, and then writing and directing like literally to be an actor, it's shut the fuck up.
Well,
It's the easiest job in the world.
You're telling these stories, and I'm thinking about how everybody that's an actor or has been on set and done a movie, they're like, it's so boring. You don't do anything. You sit around for hours and hours. But the director's side is like, well, I've been 17 hours straight, you know?
Yeah, do you like this sconce? Sconce. Fuck the sconce. There's 1,000 things I got to worry about, but you do literally have to worry about everything that's within the parameters of that frame. Everything in that frame says something and communicates something. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. We had a tough time in terms of Jimmy O. Yang and Debbie Ryan, who plays his girlfriend, who is on Jessie on Disney, and she's a stunning, aesthetic, she's just a beautiful girl.
She's
on top of
awesome.
it, incredibly talented, a total pro, funny, comes up, is prepared. Jimmy was too. But the audience was having a tough time. They were being distracted by the fact that they're dating, right? I think it's a non-traditional relationship, seeing maybe an Asian guy dating this beautiful girl. I don't know what it was, but they couldn't get over it. So here's an example of what I'm talking about in terms of paying attention to everything in the frame. So we're filming this thing, and his first night, he bombed. He does okay, but he messed up the intro of Cedric the Entertainer, which, there's a funny scene about it. So Jimmy calls and checks in with his girlfriend. And you see Jimmy, he's in like a short sleeve flannel shirt. He just kind of did okay, and he's outside on the street talking to Debbie Ryan, who looks like she's staying in a Four Seasons. And a gold-plated frame, the bed looks expensive, and I was like, that's the scene. That's what's causing this. They look at this, but it was too late. It was like we filmed it. So we had to darken her room so you couldn't really see the aesthetics of her room as much. So if you watch the film, you'll see, they darkened it for some reason. How is she working and doing schoolwork in there? And that's the reason why. So had I known that, I would have put her hair in a ponytail, in a T-shirt, like, said, make this room look shittier, guys.
Yeah.
So it's more believable. But she literally looked like Debbie Ryan is talking to an open micer. That was the problem with it.
Right.
So those are like little lessons you learn along the way, along with saying cut in action.
It's like going back and listening to a record and going, God, I should have cranked the drums a little louder in there, or a guitar part louder. You could drive your... Did you like directing?
I loved it because you are the purveyor, the conduit of the story. So if you're passionate about a story, there's no better place to be. Even if you're an actor and you love the story, it's like, all right, well, you're going to go out and show up and do your lines. But once they get to the edit bay, everything changes. So making a film is like the script is the grocery list. When you're filming, that's like going grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. And then the edit bay, that's where the meal is made. That's where you're cooking everything. So we had scenes that were that were filmed a certain way, that were completely twisted and turned into a completely different scene
in editing,
based off of the dialogue we had. It's crazy what you can do in an edit bay.
Yeah.
How involved were you? Did you let them get through a pass and then go in and watch, or were you there during? Because editing is mind-numbing shit. I don't know how people can do that for hours. They're amazing at it, but man, You're just staring
look,
at the computer and rolling it back and forth,
You know, I mean, when you're in a mixing board, right, and you're going through getting the drum loop and then matching the bass, it's so time-consuming and tedious, and it's thankless. It really is. It's a brutal aspect of
And
it.
you do lose hours. You
Hours.
look up and like, holy shit, it seems like 20 minutes and it's been 4 hours.
And it's like you got to go outside and hear a bird chirp at some point because it's dark. It's you know it's brutal. But I will say I did like it. The first I put together because you get a director's cut first, then you get the input from the rest of the team. Right. So I did my director's cut. I think it was like 2.5 hours, and I remember Vince saying, "All right, we're going to watch this. We're going to watch your pass, but I'm forewarning you right now, it's not going to be good. We're probably going to shit on it, but you can't take it personally. This is just how the process. They're never good. And if this was good, you'd be the only person in Hollywood to ever make a first pass that would." So he really set the table for me, and we watched it, and it was bad.
It's good to have a buddy, though, that's
as advertised, yeah.
It's good to have somebody you trust that will let you know that kind of stuff, too, you know?
Yeah.
It had to be easier easing in with somebody that has been through it.
Sure. And I, look, when you're sitting there, and as passionate as I was about certain aspects of the storytelling, you know, he would sit there and go, "Well, I think we should do this." And then there's times where, even though we're friends and like brothers at times, you sit back and go, "Yeah, he's been doing this for 20 years. Maybe I should listen to Vince Vaughn." Yeah. And so that's when I would take a seat back, and then we would test in front of the audience. And I'm like, "Yeah, it worked out the way he said, so I'm going to eat crow here."
How long did it take for the whole process from starting to film and ending?
Probably 4 years from the time I wrote it to the time that it all kind of came together. And you got to keep in mind, when I turned it into Vince, till the time it was done, it moved really quickly. Like that aspect moved quickly, but then COVID happened. And so I remember when we were editing the film, I've never had like a movie premiere. I've never had any of the red carpet stuff with the doc and this thing. I remember I bought a fitted tuxedo, and I got my wife a really nice dress.
You're getting ready.
And I said, "Honey, when this film comes out, we're going to wear these to the premiere of the film." She goes, "Great, okay, awesome, yeah." It comes out during COVID. October 18th, it's released on video on demand. I go to the closet, I get my tuxedo, I get her dress, I go, "We're going to wear these in the living room tonight to the premiere of the opening act." And that's what it was like. But it was like, as depressing as that could have been, it's like, fuck, I still got a movie coming out. It's
You
like,
just
who gives
made
a
a
shit?
movie.
Yeah.
You were
We made
director of a movie.
with my best pals. It was like I made it with my best pals and some of my best pals in comedy. It's like, what could be better than that? So at the end of the day, you're not going to remember the premiere. You're going to look at the poster and go, what a great experience that was.
Well, and I bet that's your taste of being in a band, because just like you said, I did this with my buddies. So
Yeah.
With the film thing, it's almost kind of the same thing, especially because I've always played in bands with friends. I've never really, here and there, but the ones that have stuck together a long time have been friends.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to build something with your buddies. And no matter what the goal you hit or little steps along the way, you're like, that's fucking cool, man. Look what we're doing.
Well, I want to ask you guys this, because as a comic, there are jokes that I know sometimes somebody wants to hear, and I'm like, for fuck's sakes, I'll do it. I'll do the goddamn joke, right? Yeah. You do the joke, but there's other jokes where it's like, there's times where it's like, it is fun to do. I really enjoy doing this joke. Is there one song, gun to your head right now, which would be very easy to do in Tennessee? What is one song you absolutely adore, love playing, and it never gets old?
Always the last one we wrote, the newest song.
Oh, really? That's kind of a cheat answer, but I'll take that.
It?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one I'm excited to play because, it's the newest one.
The last one, yeah.
Yeah, the last one we wrote.
Well, musicians, we beat our jokes, songs to death. We play them over and over and over. You guys only get a certain amount of time. You get to play your songs before you got to come up with new fucking songs.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear the old song. We talk about this all the time. Nobody wants to hear the old jokes.
Yeah.
They want new stuff.
What are your thoughts on, what if I decided that I wanted to be a Steve Byrne cover comic? And
comic.
Yeah, and I just memorized some of your jokes and dressed like you, went out and did your show as, I'm Raylan Nelson, but I'm a Steve Byrne cover comic.
I think I know where you're going with this, but I wouldn't be threatened at all. Because the true artistry comes not from being a gifted guitarist that can play Journey or Bon Jovi. It comes from the melody, crafting it, writing it, getting together in studio with your band or whatever, and creating something original. And I would know, as long as I'm original and I'm creating this stuff, yeah, you can live off of me the rest of you. I don't know who'd want to see that shit, but
If she was doing it, I
more
would.
than welcome to, yeah. But I think the true originality, it's easy to go sing Mr. Brightside in a karaoke bar or at an 80s cover band or whatever. It's hard to write it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And so that to me is like, I would always have the confidence in knowing, well, I'm the creator.
I just thought about another advantage that comics have is you're always going to have all your original members in your performance. You know what I mean? There's
Sure.
never going to be the
Steve
guy.
Byrne reunion tour, yeah.
Yeah.
With Steve Byrne. But here's the thing that I'm jealous of is that the rock stars get the girls.
Yeah.
The comics, we go to the hotel by ourselves.
I don't know. Funny is attractive, though.
Yeah.
You know, the guy's got to be funny
Like
or
Jim
play the
Florentine
guitar.
said the
you know.
same thing. He's like, yeah, the girls always say that, but I just go up and make them laugh for 45 minutes, and after the show, they just walk right fucking by.
They walk right by
the
you,
guy
yeah.
in the cover band over there in the corner in some small town can pull supermodels. That was his line.
You know,
Yeah, it's true. The guitar helps. The guitar helps.
Yeah.
The attractiveness. Yeah.
it's the greatest thing in the world. It really is.
That's why we all start playing in the first place as guys, just to pick up chicks.
Just to meet girls,
We
yeah.
love, you know.
That's why I started too.
Yeah, I saw Kiss when
Well,
I
we
was
develop
9.
a sense of humor because we never got the guitar.
Oh, that's true.
We're like jealous of the guys getting laid with the guitar. It's like, can't throw a football, can't strum a guitar. I guess I'll tell jokes.
God forbid the funny guy that can throw a football, tell jokes, and play the guitar. Then you
I
got no
hope
shot.
he gets run over by a bus. You
Is he
can't get all
single?
three.
Where is he?
Yeah.
We've been at over an hour. You got to ask the Willie Nelson questions. Then we gotta
Okay.
get the
Yeah.
fortune told.
So, when's the first time you remember hearing about Papa Willie?
Oh, this is easy. My father drove a red Ford, and he had a cassette player. And oh God, well, On the Road Again was a song he would play over and over and over again, and always on my mind.
Yeah.
He would play that on these cassettes. And so what would happen is my father owned a fish market in New Jersey, and he would drive from
Morning,
New
ladies.
Jersey.
Sorry, I had to get that one in. It's an old gag we have in the van. Anyway.
But he'd drive from Jersey to New York City at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and he'd go pick up fish, and then he'd drive down and he'd scale the fish. And when I was younger and I didn't have to go to school, I'd go with him. And so he would play Willie Nelson constantly on the way up and down. So there was a moment in time where when he had the fish store for a good 2 or 3 or 4 years, that's what we would do. We would listen to Willie Nelson, Fats Waller, and Up and Down. And so that's the first time I heard of Willie Nelson.
Okay. That's a really cool
Did you like it?
story. Yeah, what
Seems
are
a
your
little
thoughts?
repetitive.
What were your thoughts? on it?
You know what? It's funny. I did like it at the time. I liked it because it was like when you're a kid, it's all you know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your view of the world is what your parents are willing to show you. So I enjoyed it, but now as I got older, obviously, yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Did you ever think about writing songs?
No, I wouldn't even know where to start. I would have no idea. There's times where I've woken up and I audio recorded a melody.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll like sing the melody into the thing and I go back to bed and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I can't play anything. So
Hey.
why the fuck would I do that?
I got a
There's a
small
reason
studio.
they're
You
coming.
get some melodies. Come on by. We'll make some shit. Oh, yeah.
no,
There's
but
a
You're in
reason those
Nashville now.
melodies-
Everybody plays music. You're in Nashville.
yeah, Korean cowboy,
Hey,
Steve Byrne.
There you go.
I saw this great documentary called Underneath the Sky about U2. And I don't know if you'd seen this, but it was about this pivotal moment in time where they had done the Joshua Tree, and it was enormous success. And then they do Rattle and Hum, and they make a movie about them paying homage to American music.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
And then they were like, all right, well, we got shit on the press by Rattle and Hum. They hated it. They hated the album. They thought it was self-indulgent. And so the whole film is about the songwriting process of something clicking and what's this new recalibration our band is going to go, because we got to get away from that because they're vilifying for us for this. So what are we going to do? And so the whole thing is about the making of Achtung Baby. I'm not a musician, but it is so inspiring as an artist to see that even U2, were backed into a corner saying, all right, what are we going to do? I mean, to go from Rattle and Hum or With or Without You to Zoo Station, The Fly, and, Mysterious Ways. It's like, that doesn't even sound like the same band.
You're right.
And then you hear these demos, and they would just play, and nothing was going right for months. And then all of a sudden, they heard the lick for one. And the melody was there, and they go, play it back, go back. And then he said, do that. And then all of a sudden, you're watching and hearing one get born, and then from one, the rest of the album just came out like the floodgates. And I was like, whoa, that is so fucking cool.
It is so weird, and it's different with every band. You put 2 or 3 different artistic people in a room, and who knows how. Apparently, the Stones, when they were in the studio, they would sound like the worst fucking rock band in the world for hours.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it would lock in because they're half writing and half recording at the same time. But, Glenn Johns and those guys said, you better have the tape rolling because eventually you're going to be bored and all of a sudden that hair is going to stand up and they're going to be locked in and you better get it,
Yeah.
And so other people just hammer it all out and they go in and knock it out really quick. It's just probably like comedy. There's so many different ways to arrive at whatever the final product is.
Yeah, it is weird when you catch fire, though. I've had moments where it's like for months, I can't get a joke to save my goddamn life. And then all of a sudden, you're on a plane in Milwaukee and you get a cocktail napkin, you write something down, you're like, oh, that's good. And then all of a sudden, I'll just hit a run where I'm like in Vegas. I can't go. I'm going to keep betting.
Yeah.
And everything works. It's just weird, but I assume that's got to be the same way in the studio,
it is.
right?
And or just in life, because I'll go 6 months and I won't have a song idea, and I'm like, oh, I guess I just don't write songs anymore. They just don't come to me. And then all of a sudden you'll get an idea.
Right.
And usually when I'm driving alone.
Almost always driving.
It's got to be like an autopilot thing. We've talked about it before. Like you're in the shower. It's just like you're on autopilot doing something. And then
It's like the part of your
clink.
brain that stops the song coming in is busy driving. But driving is so easy to do, you're almost not paying attention. It almost takes that little barrier out of your brain somehow to let the ideas seep in.
Right.
Same with the shower. I don't know. It's just dime store psychology. But
And that being said, it still takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get it across to him because I'm so scared it's the stupidest idea ever.
Yeah.
yeah, it's something we talked about with other comics. You guys, like when you write your new song, you literally have to try it out in front of people the first time you sing or play it. Like
And I
we
would
can sit
never
around and
do
bang
that.
around, record it, listen, blah, 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 but your songs are jokes. So the first time you tell maybe you can tell a buddy, but you can't go, when you do it in front of people, you have to do it. And then you're writing it, you're writing the song as you go. You've got like a verse and a chorus.
Yeah.
You tell it, and you're like, that's pretty good or that's shitty. I'm going to change this. Let me get another verse. You come back, it's almost like...
But all jokes are melodies. I mean, really, when you watch a comic, like I've seen so many comics from Chris Rock to whoever it might be, Chappelle, when they come to the cellar and they're rehearsing, they're doing their material before they go to do a taping.
Right.
It's the cadence. It's the melody. Stop here. Higher pitched here. Lower pitch here. Take a beat. Let it draw out. And then hit them. Like you hear it. You hear the song. It's like, oh. And so when COVID hit, I talked to a few comics and they were like, oh, that's a great way of putting it. I was like, I got to find the melody again. Because you know how the structure of the joke goes. It's just, it is kind of like a song with a lot less talent.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Who's your favorite up-and-coming comics?
Up-and-coming comics, I would say Monterey Martinez. She's a fantastic young comic out of Los Angeles. Just a really great cadence, great tone. Like her voice sounds great. And just she's got this shit. The way she says the C word. I mean, it is so funny the way she said it. And she's that's...
Well, you know why they call it a cunt, don't you?
Why?
It's because of the sound it makes when you kick it. I'm sorry, a buddy of mine told that. It's probably an old street joke, but I can't ever resist telling that. We might have to edit that out. But anyway.
I worked with a great actress. I don't want to get her in trouble, but she was talking about another actress. And she said, there was this very esteemed actor who described her as this. She takes all the joy and wonderment out of the word cunt for me. And I was like, wow, that's such a great,
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, maybe we should go with the fortune read.
Let's do it. So the story is my
First of all, thanks for coming out. And
No,
doing
thank
this.
you guys.
Yeah,
It was
man,
so
this has
fun.
been great.
Stick around because we're gonna get your parents some souvenirs and stuff too.
Okay.
But my Aunt Amy and I were downtown, just hanging out. And here in Nashville, we never go down to Broadway, but for some reason we were down there, and there was a Papa Willie fortune teller machine in some souvenir shop, and
Yeah.
we thought it was hilarious. We'd taken pictures and videos and getting our fortune told, and we send them to Papa Willie, and he didn't like the fact that there was this fortune teller machine down there of him.
We'll understand why when we get out there.
Yeah.
And so a few months later, it ends up here. I don't know who he called. We have no idea. But you have to see this ridiculous looking fortune teller machine, and
Yeah,
we'll get your
I'll
fortune told.
I'll get my phone and follow us out with it. Yeah, this is,
So we're going right now to see it? Oh, yeah. Okay. This is going to be great. I can only assume this is going to be awful.
what?
The fortune teller?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
terrible.
That's a safe assumption.
Okay. Am I getting my fortune told by... This looks like Willie Nelson if he went to synagogue every Sunday. He looks kind of like he just... This should be in Israel. This is like Jewish Willie Nelson. William? This does not look like Willie Nelson at all. This looks like my attorney, Ibrahim. I'm sorry, guys. This is... So he... Okay.
Willie Nelson here to share with you some wisdom. My doctor tells me I should start slowing down, but there are more old drunks than there are old doctors. So let's all have another round. Come on, it's your lucky day. Stick around and I'll tell you some more.
That sounds like Willie Nelson if he was telling you weather on the ones.
You don't get one.
Oh, no.
I think we broke it. I'll doing this every time.
Well,
I think
this
we
is
broke
probably the only time it's ever used is when we come in here and
He
do
heard me
this, so-
shredding him. He didn't want me to get a fortune. Fuck you. That's crazy.
it. Oh, fuck you, Papa Willie.
That does not look like Will. I'd be offended.
Well, and my grandma's got brown eyes, and this guy's got obvious blue
And it didn't even
eyes.
sound like him.
He looks like he's related to you more than my grandpa.
I know. Yeah. Oh my God. Doll hair, gray hair. There's like 3 different gradations of hair. There's doll hair, pubes, and then an awful wig. Oh my God.
Steve Byrne is my favorite comedian.
Anyway, yes, fantastic conversation with Steve. Good guy. It's great to have guys like that moving into Nashville. He's becoming a friend of ours.
Yeah, I can't wait to hang out with him again. And y'all stay tuned for next week because we have another fantastic comedian.
See you next Wednesday.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, free Britney.
Enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.